Alright, I heard the train blowing that across, and I'm at the Abbeville Depot location today. I'm looking north towards Greenwood. I think he's at the Secession crossing. He needs to come on up to just below the shirt plant there. He'll be closer. Alright, I'm going to cut it off and wait till I hear him again. Maybe y'all get the whistle blowing. Horn blowing, sorry. Alright, we got auto wrecks coming in northbound out of Atlanta. This train comes out of Cincinnati. And we got another train coming from behind me, so we're going to have a meet here in Abbeville today. It looks like a short train. Looks like no more than 10 cars on it. Five, 2, 6, 8 in the lead. I see 91 on that back one. Let me see what it is. Looks like 3391. Now, I won't be able to hear him blowing at the crossing now. I went on front, DPU equipped. Got the equipment for distributed power. ES40DC. I assume that's the same type. I don't know. It looks similar. No, it's not quite. But they all got what I call bell-bottom trucks. I waved at him. But anyway, he's in the side and he's got a red signal, so whoever's coming at us, I'm thinking it's probably a coal train. That's what I usually see passing the auto racks up here. Alright, what I find interesting is he stopped down here at the station. He could have pulled on down to the signal down there. He didn't have to stop back here. I guess that's just old habits, you know. You start applying the brakes at the top of the hill to make you stop down here. And this is usually where they've been stopping at for years coming out of Atlanta. Because it used to be the crew change point here in Abbeville. It's in Greenwood now. So these guys are going to go on another 13 miles to finish their trip out. Still don't see nothing down there. It's still going to be a little bit before he gets here. I'm going to cut it off till I see something. Alright, I talked about this the other day. I'm standing at the end of where the freight lead was to the freight building. And the freight building would have been a deck right here to my left. They would have went to that telephone pole, and then from the telephone pole on over to the road over there was the freight building, and it would have gone down to about those poles down there, and there would have been a ramp off the deck up here. But I can remember talking to some old people in the old days, the old black men that used to work at the roundhouse in Abbeville before they sent them up to Hamlet, North Carolina to work at the hump yard in the roundhouse in Hamlet. They would tell me that they would get boxcars in here and they would have to unload them. There'd be Model T cars and they'd roll the frames out, and then they had to go get the chassis out or the body and put it on the frame, and they'd roll it down the ramp. Then they'd drive it up the hill to Prince Motor Company, which was the Ford dealer in town. And all that would have took place right here, all the Model Ts coming in Abbeville. There's supposed to be a sand pit down there someplace on the main line or the passing track, and that would have been for the passenger train when it came in and parked to let the passengers off. The locomotive would be sitting on the sand pit. I don't know where the one up there was, but if you look down that way, it'd probably be someplace in front of that second auto rack down there. Would be about where the sand pit was in the main line. And I had a guy, he's a friend of mine, he's dead now, he's a black man, but his job would have been working that ash pit for clean out the fireboxes on the steam engines and put it in the ash pit, and then they have to hose it down to put the fires out in the ash pit. And later on they would just rake the ashes or coal down the hill, or the ashes from the firebox down the hill. He's pumping up his air. He must have some leaks. That's why the engine keeps picking up idle. Let me see. I heard him, but he hadn't got here yet. I can't believe it. I mean, he was out of Secession, it sounded like. But this train's sitting here waiting on him. Alright, I'm going to cut it off a little bit. Over there along the woods used to be the house track, I think they call it. The team track would have been by the telephone poles, and that's where they would have had the conveyor belts to unload covered hoppers, all these. They said they had 5 conveyor belts out here one time, but when I was a kid there was only 2. But one of the events they had down here, probably back in the 70s, is they backed up 2 box cars up there, and they unloaded them. They had ramps on. They opened up the ends over the drawhead, and they had ramps, and they unloaded a replica of the best friend of Charleston. Southern ended up owning that railroad. It was the Charleston and Hamburg Railroad. It ran from Charleston, South Carolina to Hamburg, which is on South Carolina side next to Augusta. And anyway, they brought that locomotive replica up here. They unloaded it off the far track over by the woods, drove it down the track. When they got down by the road, that's where the switch was. And then they brought it back by these telephone poles up here where the conveyor belts were for unloading hopper cars. And they parked it out there for about a week. And then when they came back at the end of the week to load it up, we all got to ride it all the way down there and then ride it back up there, and they made us get off while they put it in the cars. So we sat there and watched them load them up and stuff like that. And those were fun days. I remember coming down here seeing the Spirit of 76, which is a Seaboard Coastline U-36B locomotive. It's painted up red, white, and blue for the bicentennial. So that would have been in 75, 76, and 77. I've got to ride that locomotive, and I got to go up on it a bunch of times. It had carpet on it, and the carpet was getting greasy because locomotives aren't necessarily clean. But it was still a beautiful locomotive and stuff. And I talked about on one of my videos the CCX coming through here. The CCX was the Coast to Coast Express. It was put together by Southern Pacific, Frisco, I think one more railroad, and then it came to Abbeville on the Seaboard Coastline. So their locomotives would be on there. But we used to see a lot of Frisco locomotives come in here, and they were like noisy. It was GE's, most of them, I think. I'm not sure, but I mean, they didn't look like the GE's we had, but they kind of looked like them, so I assumed they were GE's, but just different models than what we had. And this fella, he still ain't coming, so I'm gonna cut it off for a little bit. Alright, looking at the MU hoses and stuff, I talked about this in earlier videos, but the inside one, those three hoses on the outside of the far left and far right of the draw head there, the big one on the closer to the draw head in both sets, you can hook up one set or the other. You don't usually hook up both sets when you're MUing a locomotive, but the big hose is the one that's attached to the air tanks. And that's 200 pounds of pressure. And like I said, one locomotive can be pumping up air and it will supply all the locomotives. So if you got a locomotive that the air pressure comes on at a little bit lower pressure than the rest of them, it'll come on, it'll start pumping up the air, the rest of them won't even get low enough to come on. So that's what's in the big pipe. And then the two smaller pipes on this side, like I said, one's for sander and one's for the independent brake on the locomotive. So you put air in that pipe and that makes the pistons go out. And that applies your brakes, and of course the amount of air pressure you put on there. Now he just picked up RPMs because he's got the air compressor on, so they do that. Whenever the air compressor comes on, the locomotive automatically speeds up, so he's not trying to go anywhere. It's just that he's making air. He must have one heck of a leak because he's constantly making air. Alright, this is a DPU type locomotive. It could run a DPU, be in the head end, or it could be a locomotive in the middle of the train being run by the head end. Distributed power is what that is. And that lead one, I think I see the DPU up on it too. Alright, just above the brake piston, right there where the framework drops down, you got that little rectangular box with the pipe sticking out. That's how they drain the toilet. The toilet's sitting right above that in the front part of the locomotive up there in the nose. Alright, let me pause it. Maybe that train will get here. We'll get some excitement going. Maybe I should have just turned around and looked. He was coming up. He'll be coming down the main line, because this one beside me is on the siding over there. So he's moving pretty good. I wonder who he is, what he is. Looks like Autorex, southbound. So this is the sister train to the one we got parked here. This one's a short one also. Got flat spots on a couple of wheels. Alright, so that'll allow him to clear the signal up. And I can't see it from here. I can see it clearly with my eyes, and they're both red. It's going to be a red over green. He's going to get a medium clear to pull out. Now the track he's on is good for 35, and the track on the main line, speed limit's 45. So he's gonna pull that 35 out. He's got a clear signal. I don't know if you can see it or not. It ain't showing up too good, but the signal post on the right is a green. Sorry about the walking. Trying to see if I can get closer, if I can see that green showing up or not. But anyway, he's got medium clear, so he ought to be knocking off his brakes about now. I see the engineer moving around up there a little bit. I'm not getting any waves or nothing. Alright, he honked at me. So the other one's going back to Ohio, and this one came out of Ohio. It goes south, it gets to Atlanta, and runs across North Atlanta and makes a right on the Abbeville sub to come to Abbeville. I can't see nothing. The big wave and I can't see it. 3391. This is ET44AA. So 4,400 horsepower on that locomotive. BNSF, Norfolk Southern car, Canadian National. All these cars are pooled. Norfolk Southern. So just because the railroad owns that car doesn't mean they're going to use that car. CSX, this was owned by this railroad. So they just park a bunch of auto racks up there, and they just pull out what they need and put them on the train. It doesn't matter what railroad or anything. Canadian National, Union Pacific. That was another CSX one. Alright. Because he stopped, he had to go like 10 or 15 miles an hour till he gets through the signal. Then he can get up to track speed at 45. But you can come in on a clear, which means you can go from this signal to the other signal at 45. But once you stop, you can't go back to track speed. You have to go at a limited speed through here, or a slower speed, which is like 15. Now that's why he's creeping out. And as soon as he gets that last car past the signal, and he's probably got a counter going down, so when he hit it, he knows how many feet he's rolled, and he knows when he can start hitting the throttle, let off the brakes anyway. But he's rolling downhill. He doesn't have to use any throttle because he's going downhill all the way. He's been sitting down with the train going downhill. Top of the hill is at 441. We're at 440. So it's a mile that direction all the way uphill. And then he's probably got another mile that direction. He's going downhill. So it's 2 miles downhill from the top of the hill. So like I said, he doesn't have to use throttle. If anything, he used dynamics to hold it back, make sure she don't go too fast. Speed limit's 45. Alright, that's the end of the action, guys. He's disappearing, going outside. Alright, bye-bye.